Last summer, my husband and I decided to take a small vacation 4 hours away in eastern Washington. We had never expected to have the most terrifying experience of our lives instead. We drove over Thursday night to stay during the weekend and come back Sunday night. The drive alone was beautiful, the never-ending landscape of trees and mountains with the occasional peak of the river was amazing. We got to our Airbnb about 8 p.m. Thursday. We were settling into our rental when my husband received a text message from the host, welcoming us to the cabin and letting them know if we had any issues at all. We poured out a couple of beers into some glasses and cheered for the fun weekend ahead. We went outside to the dark, beautiful moonlit night and sat on the deck, facing a river and star-filled night sky. We were talking and Googling good places to try and eat at, as well as some attractions nearby. My husband got hungry while talking about food, so he asked if I was in the mood for some pizza. I quickly agreed because beer and pizza are my two favorite things. He figured we'd try our first local place nearby, and he called and ordered our pie. The pizza shop was about 10 minutes away, so he went to put on his jeans to go pick up the pizza soon. I thought about going with him, but I thought I'd stay behind and get the table ready for a late-night snack and have 2 more beers ready to go instead. My husband came and walked over to tell me that he'd be back soon and to not open the door for any strangers. We both chuckled because that seemed like a ridiculous thought, a stranger coming to knock on the door so late at night, in the middle of the woods, this late. I heard my husband start the car and drive away on the gravel road. I started going through the unfamiliar cabinets, looking for plates and paper towels, and pushing my luck with something spicy to add to the pizza. A few moments later, I heard a strange sound by the front door. I had been vigilant and listening out for our car on the gravel road so I could open the door for my husband, but I hadn't heard the gravel. I knew it wasn't my husband outside, so then I thought it must be a raccoon or other nighttime critter. I made my way towards the front door, then I heard another sound again right outside the door. There were no windows that I could use to peek outside, but I stood on my tippy toes to use the peephole. At first, I didn't see anything, but then I barely spotted a single black suitcase by the door. I then hear another sound and see a strange man looking around the property, and he looks just as confused as I feel. I walk towards the kitchen and call my husband. He doesn't pick up. As I'm about to text my husband, I hear a soft knock on the door. I still hadn't heard the gravel being driven on, so I knew it wasn't my husband knocking. I hesitate and think for a second about what to do. I walk up to the door and don't answer it. Instead, I set my ear on it and listen. I hear pacing right on the other side of the door, and I once again get on my tippy toes to look through the peephole. I see the suitcase in the same position, and the man pacing back and forth just right outside, with his hand on his chin, as if thinking deeply about something. I step back and call my husband once again. I walk towards the kitchen, and my husband answered the phone.
Hey babe, are you okay?
Hi babe, yes, I'm okay, but there's someone outside. He's got luggage, and he's knocked once. I don't know what to do. I don't have a good feeling about this.
Okay, don't worry, I'll be right there. I'm just 3 minutes away. I'll be right there. I'm about to turn into the private road with all the gravel.
Okay my love, be safe. I love you.
I love you too. I'll see you soon.
I feel a bit better, and I walk over to the door, to wait for my husband. I use the peephole to see where that strange man is, and I can't see him anymore. I do, however, still see the luggage. I step back, and I hear the gravel crunching from my husband driving up towards the house now. I immediately feel better. I hear the car stop, then I hear the door open, and my husband steps onto the gravel. I open the door, and see my husband walking up with the pizza in his hands. He stops and looks at the luggage for a second, then shrugs and walks into the cabin. I follow him into the kitchen, and give him a big hug the second he puts the pizza box down. I tell him everything I saw and heard as he's putting slices of pizza onto some plates for us. He reassures me that we have nothing to worry about. Just as we take our first bite of pizza, we hear some knocking on the door. My stomach sinks, and my husband goes to open the door. I hear a man's voice. I heard him mumble something about how he's locked out from his cabin just down the road, and he was asking if he could come in and use our phone. My husband put his left foot between the doorway and the door, and his right foot just behind the door, locking it into place between his legs. He kindly declines, but then he offers to make a call for him. The man refuses, and thanks my husband. My husband shuts the door and comes back, looking a little worried. I asked him if he was all right, and he nodded yes quietly. I sigh and let my husband know that I don't believe a word that man said. Who was he going to call if we did let him use our phone? Why would he come up to our cabin if he's locked out of his? And why does he keep disappearing and reappearing, leaving his luggage out by our door? If I needed help, I would have moved on already, to find someone else willing to help, not nag the same people over and over. It was all too suspicious, and it was racking our nerves now. I suggested we call the owner of our cabin and ask him for maybe some input. My husband agrees and starts calling. I go to the front and open the door slightly to check on our car. I have a feeling that this guy might get angry and slash our tires or something. I peek through the small crack and I open the door. Everything seems in order, but I notice the man's suitcase is still there. I step outside, observing my surroundings. I picked up the suitcase to move it farther away from the front door and out of our way, just in case we had to make a run for it when I was confused to feel the suitcase and how light it was. My arm wasn't expecting it to be so light, so it took me by surprise. I shook it a little to feel if anything was in it at all, and I felt like there were only one or two things at the bottom rolling from side to side. I immediately covered my mouth with my free hand, because now I knew that this man was lying. I set the suitcase down and ran back inside. After making sure I locked the door, I rushed to find my husband with his hand on his forehead, holding the phone up to his ear. He looks up at me and sets the phone down. He says that the owner of the rental confided in him that all of the cabins in that area belonged to him and that we were the only ones that checked in that day. He also said that nobody else should be up there until the next evening. I told my husband that I moved the suitcase and that it was empty, and that it was a red flag in itself. Our fun, relaxing weekend had made us both feel tense, and we weren't sure what to do anymore. I didn't feel safe, knowing that maybe this man was still hiding somewhere outside, and my husband was feeling overwhelmed. We decided to call it in. A patrol car showed up about 30 minutes later and the two officers searched the property for the man. He was nowhere to be found, just his suitcase remained by the door. We decided to stay. We were nervous the whole night, and after Friday the weekend turned out to be a great one. But the whole time, I know I was thinking about the situation in the back of my mind and felt uneasy. Before we left on Sunday, I picked up the suitcase and was going to put it in the house. I thought, maybe it could be of service to a future guest. As I moved it, I noticed I was dragging something from underneath it. I bent down to look. I thought it was debris from a tree or something from outside, but my heart sank as I saw a piece of rope hanging out from inside the suitcase.